Today we're excited to welcome Mercedes Austin, the founder of Mercury Mosaics, which is headquartered in Northeast Minneapolis. They are a manufacturer of handmade ceramic tile, probably some of which you've seen before. Welcome, Mercedes.
Thanks for having me.
So we always like to give our listeners a little background about our guest. And so could you tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and what you're doing today?
Well, I'm Mercedes Austin, born and raised in Minnesota, grew up in South Minneapolis, and art has been a part of me for all of my life. I've always enjoyed coloring and drawing and creating things, and I went to college to enter into a real career, and I ended up going into creating art. And that led into creating a business and deciding to, as a mosaic artist, I wanted to make my own tiles for my mosaics. And now I've been on this adventure, this journey of creating my own supply chain. I say it's my 18-year tangent to create my own supply chain for my mosaic career I'll eventually get into.
Yeah. How did you know that, what got you into, the mosaic side of things? Art has you can run the gamut with, different types of art, but what got you focused on that?
It was really this college roommate of mine. She had a kind of this hobby DIY project. She was transforming some tile, repurposing them into a coffee table, and I had never seen anything like it. I'd seen paintings, I'd seen a lot of different forms of art, but I just really enjoyed the tactile nature of it, and I loved that it was incorporated into something useful and functional, and I just really have never looked back.
Yeah. And that led you to founding Mercury Mosaics, right? So was that the name of it when you founded it?
No, I called it Mosaics by Mercedes.
Okay.
So I was just really intending to support myself and have a day job related to my art. And I was venturing with that for a couple years, and I went to this national mosaic conference, and I learned a lot of people that were making mosaics, and if they were actually turning it into a business, it wasn't unusual that they would call their business like Mosaics by Kathy or Mosaics by Anne. Title. Yeah. So I was like, oh, I have to really distinguish myself somehow. So
cool.
Yeah.
So tell us what Mercury Mosaics is. If you could give your little, Shark Tank pitch. What is it, and what do you do in the community?
Mercury Mosaics is like a bakery for tile. We make tile for your neighbor next door's kitchen backsplash, or we also make it for your bustling entrepreneurial super fancy lobby with like a feature wall and some branding incorporated into the mosaic art. And we also will make mosaics for your neighborhood Whole Foods cheese department, some pops of color, and everything in between. We do it for locals. And actually, I really grew through helping people nationally and utilizing internet marketing and social media to attract people with pretty pictures to inspire them to do something a little different than a tile you'd find in a hardware store.
Right. It's a very individualized approach to that art in someone's home or business.
That's right. Yeah, it's like your wall is our sketchbook, essentially.
Yeah, it makes a very, very unique piece in any sort of environment, right? You can go buy something off the shelf, but to have something that's uniquely you or uniquely your brand is relevant to people.
I always like to explain it. You can buy clothing off the rack, which is nothing wrong with it, but there's just something about when you've personalized a shirt and you put it on every time and it fits you just right.
Right.
That's like when we customize something with our tile for your space. It just makes you feel good. You invested that extra time, you spent that extra money, but it's like really personal to you.
So, what year did you found the company?
2002.
2002. So you are in your 19th year, 18th year.
18th, yeah.
Bad math.
It's okay.
Cool. And you are in Northeast, and you've been doing these projects. How have you kind of seen yourself grow? So did you just start by doing, like smaller projects in people's homes, or did you start with the bigger stuff and then kind of figure out you can do it all?
Oh no, I've done it the long, hard road. I started by making small little accent pieces. Usually I would cover in mosaics, something that I found, like be it a repurposed picture frame or a small accent mirror, no larger than, 10 inches by 10 inches kind of thing. And those later grew into the inspiration for a kitchen. So it started really grassroots. And I started by putting a few of these pieces into local consignment shops. And that's how it started. So it was a long road the first couple of years where I wasn't earning a living from it, but I was really kind of setting the stage and just learning what people would respond to, and just also getting my act together to just be regularly making things and getting them out there.
Get into a cadence of doing things. And then, of course, word of mouth. I think that's a lot of how these kind of things, like that's how I've found out about a lot of art too, is because word of mouth. I don't necessarily see it on the internet, although we'll get there because we're talking about internet marketing a little bit. But, a lot of your growth probably had to do with, word of mouth, and, talk a little bit about how that got you to where you are now. And then we can get into the internet marketing side of things, because you're very active on Instagram.
Yeah, absolutely. One isn't separate from the other,
Right.
and many might see it that way, but it's always about layers. But word of mouth is the most powerful, and referral, that just the power of suggesting something and earning the trust of someone to tell someone they are connected to about you is the most powerful thing that you can do to grow a business. I believe that to this day. It's about taking care of people. Absolutely.
And before we get into, because you and I, when we first met, we talked about internet marketing. So I do want to focus on that a little bit. But you talk about taking care of people. And so this was something I was curious about. Tell us a little bit about your culture, the team you have, what your team consists of. What do things look like on a daily basis for you guys in Northeast?
Well, for us, so my team consists of around 30 people, and we are from any range of having someone that's been there for 3 months, where they're, simply learning the ropes on our process in how to conduct our mosaic classes, or they're learning how to apply color onto tiles, which is glazing, or they're understanding how we put things in boxes and get it from Minnesota to California in one piece. A typical day really looks like a split between what's happening on our production floor and then what's happening on what I call the front end of the house, where we're either educating someone on our tile or we're administering someone's interest and getting it to the other side of the wall so it can be made. So there's that gamut, and I have a range of staff that have been with me, from a range of 3 months to 12 years. So we have quite a span. I'd say the average tenure in my company is about 3 years, and there's, I'd say, a half dozen veterans that have been with me between 8 and 12 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you have dogs, right? People can bring dogs.
Yes, the dogs. Yeah, it started with 1, and then it was 2, and then 3, and then there's about 7 on average that come in.
Well, that's always makes for a fun day.
It does. Yeah, it does. Actually, you might be just you're working, and all of a sudden, out of the corner of your eye, you see something. What was that? And there's a very little dog named Babu that walks around the studio, and she could fit in one of your hands. She's so small. And some days she has outfits on because it gets cold outside to keep her warm, but she runs really fast. And so it looks like just a little streak out of the corner of your eye if you don't look really closely.
That's awesome. And in this office, so you have most of your employees there. I know you opened a new facility recently.
I'm planning to
open a new one. Sorry. And in this facility is your manufacturing facility, right?
Yeah, I do start to see why people separate manufacturing from the administrative offices, but darn it, I'm stubborn. So everything is under one roof, and that's been very important to me. But it's an interesting fine line once you get into the scale that we're producing and some of the efficiencies we're aiming to filter into our process, and making sure they're not super noisy and non just work environment friendly. So it's important for me to have a good balance.
Okay.
Haven't always figured out the whole like handling all the dust issue and electronics, but I mean, there's always problems in business, so there's good problems or bad problems.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if there's dust, it means we're making a lot of stuff.
Right.
So
Which is good, right?
yeah, exactly.
You can't get too upset about that.
Can't get too upset about it.
And so you're all under one roof, one room, one
That's
massive
right.
facility.
Yeah, and technically my space is 2 spaces combined into one. It's an L shape. It's 15,000 square feet, and our ceilings are 24 feet high, and we have, in some of the areas of our facility, there's 2 stories of windows. And tons of natural light. That's awesome. It's a pretty good space.
Okay, so we kind of have an understanding of what your company does, where you are, kind of culture, what things look like. So walk me through, if I was to be looking for, I've just purchased a mosaic from you for the wall in my office right here. It was going to be branded, because you've noticed our branding in here. We won't talk about it any further than that, but what would that look like for me as a customer as I'm coming in, and what does the process look like for you from like design to manufacturing?
Yeah, so let's say you want to put something on your wall that highlights characteristics of your brand and expressed in tile. So it would probably first start out by just understanding, well, what are you inspired by? What are your goals? Have you seen something that led you to us, that inspired you? Just helping us understand like, what are the most important things? What are you inspired by? Then kind of getting into nuts and bolts, like, well, what's the size of your space before we really wine and dine you for a long time? Let us just kind of help you understand, some general ballparks of what the wall area investment could be. And then if you still like us, then we would want to give you some samples, have you kind of narrow down what your colors are, learn if you've been influenced by any certain patterns, and then kind of based on what we've discussed in those parameters, give you kind of an option 1, option 2. So we can get your feedback on what you like, don't like, what works, doesn't work kind of thing, without completely spelling out the whole design for you, but just kind of our goal is each time you touch upon interacting with us that we narrow down what you're doing. Like, we don't want to be that creative agency where every time you connect with us, we give you like 20 more ideas to think about. That'll really never service you the best or us. So we really like to help you stay inspired, become more and more informed, and then be very knowledgeable and certain about what you're going to do with us. So that's the design process. So fast forward where we fine tune it. We've done a little back and forth. You've given us feedback. We've given you the finals to approve. You've approved it. So then it goes to the other side of the wall. I always say that. It's on the other side of the wall where they make it. And generally we make it in 4 weeks. So it goes through tile making, glazing, and then into our kilns. And then the longest part on something custom is going to be in our layout division. So we'll actually make a template true to the size of your wall in real life and print it out in our studio and lay the tile out as if your wall was there. And then just kind of depending on the level of the design, we would send you photos to approve, or if you're local, we'd invite you to come in and see it before we cut it down. And, at this point, our job is to have done a great enough a job on the design, so you're not like coming in and making 50% changes when it's laid out. So we've been through this rodeo enough times to be very responsible of your time and ours during the design process to make sure you understand what you're getting. So then we get your approvals, and then we cut it down and number it. It's on mesh sheets. So it's basically for your installer, a grown-up puzzle. And it's just simply we supply a map with it that's numbered. And we want to make it really simple. I don't know if you've had a good time assembling IKEA furniture.
No.
Okay. Well, some people have a great time. Some people are like, I'm going to hire someone to do that on TaskRabbit. But basically the concept is not to give you a 19-page novel on what you're about to install, but to make it really simple with an image and numbers, and that's it. And then they correspond with the numbered sheets. You do a dry layout before you install it on your wall, and away you go.
Well, it seems like a pretty easy process.
Yeah.
And so one thing I wasn't sure of, you don't do the installation.
We don't.
Okay.
I used to.
Okay.
I retired my installer hat back in 2009. And even at that point, I wasn't installing everything we did, obviously, but I definitely was pretty involved in install, but you choose your battles. Ironically, we have had one of our veteran employees spin off into becoming an installer for our tile. So, and she likes really fun, creative, challenging stuff. So generally, locally, if there's something that we want installed, we want to recommend her something that will, keep her creative chops up and be a really good challenge. But mostly, if we've recommended her, it's just all part of like an extension of us taking really great care of the customer from start to finish and ensuring that, like, if they ask for our recommendation, because we never just like blindly recommend, but if they ask for it, we want to have that available. And there's like 4 other local installers that we like to recommend, and we just like to have that in our back pocket if people need to be cared for that way.
Totally. And one thing you didn't mention that I remember is that you make your own colors, right?
So right now, we actually, just for transparency, we've been buying our colors off the shelf this whole time, but we are 16 weeks into testing and understanding and becoming the maker of our own
you were
colors.
Pretty excited about that.
I'm very excited about it. It'll be definitely a game changer. We've definitely broken or maxed out a lot of our supply chains, which frankly are not created to service high volume tile production studios. So they're not set up for that. So I think, just as entrepreneurs, you tape things together until you break them, and then it forces you to come up with something more intelligent if it's not, something that's your highest priority. And I didn't want us to become chemists in my first 10 years of business. That's like a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
But we have someone that is just extremely passionate about being a chemist for our glazes and is like a ceramicist. So she's taking classes right now. We have a team that's set up that's been doing tests for us. So it's a great project. That's right.
Awesome.
Yeah. So by the end of the year, I can definitely say yes to that for some of our color palette.
Okay, cool. And we were introduced to you by a gentleman that was another guest on our podcast. And so this is exciting, and you're in the process of expanding. So what does that look like for you? Can you tell us a little bit about that? That's public.
Yeah, totally. Well, so with that process we just described, if you were going to theoretically get a mural of your logo, so essentially we have 2 businesses under one roof. We're laying out these custom mosaics, and then we have our standard tile. And so our standard tile is absolutely our bread and butter. Those are the things that we're really confident and certain on our margins, and that's really, I call those sales our investors, like our tile sales with our bread and butter shapes that we can make blindfolded. Those are our investors. So obviously it's going to be smart business for me to expand upon those. And those are the things that I set up on our website that are more readily available to ship. And not coincidentally, those are the things that we sell the most off my website. Our website grew by 200% last year, so that was really cool. So I want to expand those upon in their own production lines. And so that's where insert Essex Capital, Justin Erickson.
And Justin, for those of you that may have listened to that episode before, he is a Minneapolis-based guy that matches larger businesses or businesses that are growing with smaller communities that have a workforce that's ready to work and has space available for companies to expand, to place another office, or to place a manufacturing facility. So tell us a little more about what you're thinking there.
Yeah, so basically Justin and I have went through the process of looking at several rural communities, and so we've landed upon Wadena, Minnesota. And we've found a facility. We've put together the different financing that's available when you take on a model like this. And so essentially we're at the point of refining the space planning and basically beginning a construction process to carry forward the vision to have, basically I'll be extracting out certain parts of my production line, which is I've envisioned my company like this for so many years, 7 years, but until meeting Justin, it wasn't completely real to me, the process of how it would work. But I never really imagined having a Mercury Mosaics in 100 to 200,000 square feet. I've always imagined it to be in more micro settings, to keep it intimate and to have several of them. It's definitely been part of the long-term vision.
Yeah. That's really exciting for you because it's been 18 years coming now, and so congratulations.
Thank you.
That's big.
It is big. Yeah, I didn't have kids, but I birthed the company, and so I kind of joke around like it's about to go off to college.
And that's another investment time.
That's right.
And hopefully
it's different because you're not going to be with it every day.
That's right.
So
you're going to have these trusting,
That's right.
Okay,
and managing some things from a distance.
Yep, and learning to let go of certain things.
That's right.
And that's going to be, it's going to be growing pains, but it'll be okay.
There always is. Yeah. You get to the other side.
Yeah. That's really exciting, and I want you to talk for brief few minutes about this phenomenon about internet marketing. Someone had told you, I can't really recall our conversation perfectly, but someone had told you, oh, don't ever don't put things on your website, they won't sell. Am I recalling that right? And then you said, okay, and then you put something on your website, and then, like you said, your website grew by 200%. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was just told that you can't sell handmade tile on a
website.
I was like, oh, really?
And so you tested it.
Yeah.
And that's, you said, like, what percentage of your sales comes from your website now?
Well, the first year I launched my website, which was in 2018, 2% of my sales sold off of it. Last year, 10% of my sales sold through it.
That's awesome. That's a good growth.
That's really good growth. Yeah.
That's awesome. And you're on Instagram. I see you on my feed all the time. So you're.
Oh, you do? Okay, great. Wonderful.
It's really good stuff. I highly suggest following it just because, you might want to buy it.
2-second eye candy, though.
But
it's
yes,
just like, it could
really
boost
pretty.
your day just visually.
I'm colorblind. So the fact that I can, recognize the
it.
beauty in that,
Yeah.
because not only are they pretty pretty mosaics, but the background, the photo, there's always like thought and care I can tell into the picture. It's not just like, here we go, put it up there. It's okay. The lighting is always good. It's very well done.
Yeah, my team curates a pretty mean Instagram feed. Yeah.
We have a few minutes left. Tell me a little bit about what you're passionate about outside of work.
Let's see, outside of work, I'm passionate about going out to eat and trying out new restaurants. I love that.
Have you been to Demi?
No, I haven't. I've been to, so I also, ever since I was in high school, well, even before that, I'm always going to movies. I don't know, that sounds like really uneventful, but.
No, it's part of my monthly ritual.
I love going to movies. And I love getting bacon popcorn at a specific theater with really great seasoning. It's probably like the worst thing you can eat, but that is, my treats are doubling up on coffees. Like if it's today that's my second coffee. So I like the simple pleasures. I strength train. I've been doing that now for 3.5 years.
Right, we talked about that. Yeah, that's
cool. I like just kind of disagreeing. Like, okay, fine, I'm over the age of 40, but I don't have to like agree to go downhill because that's the case.
No.
I have friends that are in their like mid 30s that think they're super old, but so I just think you just have to change, what you're doing. So I'm passionate about that, and like my favorite thing to do, honestly, is to go out and have coffee dates with people. Honestly, I'm pretty simple like that, and I love catching up on magazines, and once in a blue moon I actually do play with mosaics in my home studio. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Or I'm in some kind of class and just enhancing my knowledge of life and things. So
well, don't ever give up on the strength training. I will not give my mother's age because if she heard this she would be mad at me, but she's significantly up there, and she goes to CrossFit every morning.
Oh,
so,
yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Just
I'll never give it up.
Doesn't mean
exactly.
You can't go anymore.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, that concludes the first part of our podcast. So I don't know if when you listen to our other ones, if you heard the trivia segments, but we do trivia for the last part of it. So the trivia is always focused on current events or things that just happened, or Minnesota or Twin Cities. I threw in one artistic thing because I just thought it would be fun. You're going to probably really laugh at it, but I thought I was being clever.
Okay. Well, hey, I am just a disclaimer, if you're ever competing and doing trivia, like, don't select me. So let's just
I'm the same way.
Sometimes I get the 10-cent discount at Caribou, sometimes not. So let's see how it goes.
Okay. All right. So and just a disclaimer, we every question that you get right, and I'll help you through them, so you'll always get them right. But every question you get right, we give a donation to House of Charity, which is a local nonprofit that helps those that are experiencing homelessness achieve independence. And
Nice. Wow.
It's an organization that's close to Troust, and so it's just a nice way for us to give to them, and through a fun means. So.
Awesome.
All right, you ready? Here we go.
Ready.
All right, so you go to coffee shops a lot, and so they often have pastries, right? What is the Minnesota State muffin?
And I would argue, I'm gluten-free, so I don't totally pay
well, I would
attention
argue
to
it's probably the most popular muffin you would ever see somewhere.
I mean, a blueberry muffin.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, blueberries.
Okay.
All right, number 2. Who recently won the NFL Super Bowl?
Oh, the Kansas City Chiefs.
Right?
Yeah.
That was the first one they had. I don't know if it was the
50
first
years.
one. 50 years.
Yeah. I mean, I don't follow football, but I knew that. So if I know that, you have to be under a rock to
And
not
I know I've followed Andy Reid, and I know now he can probably retire. You know, he's been doing this for a long time, so that was a big achievement. I was on the phone with someone who works in Kansas City, and she was saying they're shutting down everything because of the parade, and they're just like, the city's going crazy.
Oh,
so.
they deserve that.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
Kansas City's such a great
cool.
city.
Yeah,
so.
I'm all about the Midwestern team. Are you kidding me?
All right, last one. Now, you're probably going to laugh at me at this one. I made this one up myself.
Oh, okay? My. Okay.
Just because I wanted to see if the internet was actually right. Magenta is a beautiful color.
Wait, did you just say you were colorblind, but now you're going to ask me about color, and you're wondering if the internet's right? Where is this going?
Magenta is a beautiful color. What 2 colors could you mix together to make magenta?
Oh gosh, you know, you're insinuating I'm the color expert, but I've got everyone fooled. I never took a color theory class.
Really?
Yeah.
See, and it's
so sorry to all the fine painters out there that can answer that and are rolling their eyes at me, but
I just find it fascinating. So
I couldn't tell you.
I thought it would be like purple and pink or something, because that's kind of what I think of, but it's red and blue.
Red and blue. In my mind, it was like red and green.
Yeah, I never would have thought.
I have a color wheel in my office, so I definitely use it, but yeah, these things don't come natural to me. I have to like view color and see how they respond to me emotionally, but it's just like the theory and on paper and all that, like nope. Okay. I'll lose every time.
Well, I just thought I'd try.
Okay.
I didn't know, because you said when we met that you guys were looking at making your own colors. And
not the same thing. Like with mixing ceramic colors, you're mixing like dry chemicals. Okay. You don't have like vivid colors in front of you like wet paint. Not the same thing.
But you do know what your end product will be.
You do through tests, and that's a whole nother can of worms of like what temperature and how many coats do you apply. And there's a lot of Testing colors in ceramic is definitely, I've been a painter. It's not as fun as that, because you have to wait at least 24 to 48 hours to see what your results are. You don't get to see them.
Dry and everything,
Dry and then fire in the kiln.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, congratulations to you and your growth over the last 18 years and what you're going to do coming forward. And thanks for spending time with us today.
Yeah, absolutely.